I just got these animals their food. I put some food out for them. Well, I had food out for them last night and they had a lot left over this morning. But I just went ahead and gave them another bucket, and I guess they saw me pouring that bucket out, and they're coming running up to the front. But last night I actually let the calves out of the pen. I let the calves out of the barn. All of the animals have responded well to the antibiotics. So I had another animal last night that was just kind of he had his head real low, and he looked like he wasn't really looked like maybe he was not feeling real good. And so I gave him a shot of antibiotics too. And all of the animals that got antibiotics have responded well to the antibiotics. I know I was saying that that first animal, when I took the animals in to get their vaccinations, one of the animals was presenting signs of illness, and she responded well to her antibiotics. So all of the animals have responded well to the antibiotics as of right now. I took a hard look at the animals this morning, and when I took a look at them, I didn't see any signs of illness. And so so far I've given about 6 or 7 out of the 15 animals a shot of antibiotics already. And I gave them all their vaccinations, and as of right now they all look like they're doing okay. And so I took a look at them, and the whole thing about these little calves, one of the little things about these little calves is that if they ever start wobbling, like when they're walking, if they ever start wobbling, that's a sign that something's wrong, particularly in terms of their diet. Like if you got these little 170-pound calves, if you got these little 200-pound calves, if you follow them around for maybe 10-15 minutes, if they ever start wobbling, that's a sign that something is wrong, and it's usually particularly with their diet. They are not getting enough energy in their diet. They're not digesting enough food to effectively give them enough nutrients to survive. And so this morning, and actually the grass in the front, I actually got a little bit of regrowth. I'm not sure exactly, if the winter wheat just grew back a little bit because of the rain that I had, and I don't know exactly what happened, but I do have some regrowth in the grass in the front yard. And so I was like, well, I actually have this regrowth, and the regrowth has good feed values, right? I mean, regrowth effectively just means that the plant started growing all over again. And if the plant starts growing all over again, it is now vegetating, right? And so I took a look at the grass, and I was like, I actually have some regrowth in the front yard. I have some regrowth in the front yard, so I went ahead and let the calves out on it. And they are effectively just eating it. They are and actually these calves, they actually know what the feed bunk is now too. So I have the feed bunk out there for them, and the calves, they know what the feed bunk is too. So I have the feed bunks out there, and they're walking around eating the grass, and they're eating out the feed bunk too. And so so if you take a look at my numbers, you will understand that this year I have So when I take a look at my numbers, and and I was talking about this yesterday, but when the numbers are the numbers, right? I always say that money's not an opinion. Money's not an opinion. Nobody cares about an opinion. Money is not an opinion. And so when you look at it, and money is also very simple. All right, this is something that I talk about all the time. Money is not confusing. When you look at it, it's a number. That's it. All right, it's not an opinion. It's nothing. It's just legitimately just a number. And so when I take a look at the number, right? When I take a look at the number, I've effectively made about, it's been about 5 months in the year, and I've made about $120,000, right? And what did I do with that 120 grand? Well, I got 17,000 of it in the bank. I got 27 animals that are stabilized and have increased in value, and I also have 15 animals that are a higher risk and that I'm stabilizing right now, right? And effectively, when I have these 15 animals stabilized, I can bring home another set of 15 animals, and when I do that, I will have grown my balance sheet, right? That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea, right? Is to grow my balance sheet. I'm actually looking to expand my business. I've already, I've been talking about this for several weeks. The only thing that I can realistically do, and I've been talking about this in terms of multiple metrics, right? In terms of the amount of money that I make farming cattle, the amount of money that I make is so large that I actually make more money And and I've talked about this in terms of a realistic sense. I actually make more money running cattle on my 50 acres, right? On my 50 acres, I make more money running cattle than anybody on the planet makes doing anything. Just about. Legitimately, I'm not lying about it. I am telling you the truth. Right? I legitimately make so much money running cattle that I effectively make more money than anybody on the planet doing anything. And it's by a lot. I'm not lying about it. I am telling you the truth. You can go and look into it for yourself. All right, I effectively, within and I've talked about this, in terms of multiple metrics, it's whatever. You can look at it from whatever direction you want. The whole thing about this is that I actually make more money on my 10-acre field than most people make on 500. All right, when you take a look at the amount of money that I make, I actually make more money farming cattle than anybody on the planet makes doing anything. Just about. And it's by a lot. Like legitimately multiple hundreds of times more money. I start my own businesses. That's equitable. I'm positive cash flow. As of today, I am positive cash flow about $25,000 a month. That's how much money I have left over. All right, and guess what? My income is actually going up. I've actually taken a look at it, and I have determined that I cannot do anything with this money other than put it back into my business. There's nothing that I can do with this amount of money. It's not even possible to spend it unless I become an idiot. I legitimately make so much money on this running cattle that I make more money than anybody on the planet doing anything. Just about. And it's by a lot. What's another way to look at this? Well, so far for the year, I've ran about 75, 80 cattle, right? It is what it is, right? So far, it's been about 5 months. And I have run 75 to 80 cattle, right? Out of those 75, 80 cattle, I have liquidated 35 of them. And I liquidated them at market, at the target market weight, etc., etc. So I've ran about 75, 80 cattle for the year. I've liquidated 35 of them about, I have 27 animals that are completely stable. They're going up in value. I have 15 animals that are higher risk that I am stabilizing right now. And I also have $17,000 cash. So I started the year with about 35 animals, right? And by about next month, I will have expanded my balance sheet from 35 to about 60 animals. I will more or less have doubled my income in the first 6 months of the year. And guess what? I'm not using any leverage. I'm using zero debt right now. I will be using debt once I re-leverage myself. And when I use debt, I will actually increase my income even more. And this is not a lie. I am telling you the flat out truth. I'm making it as obvious as I can. All right, I show you my checks. I show you my animals. I show you how I do everything. I legitimately make more money farming cattle by myself than anybody on the planet makes doing anything, just about. And it's by a lot. Legitimately, it's enough money where I don't worry about money anymore. I don't even worry about money. The only things that I really worry about are what direction is my business going? What am I looking to do with my business over the next 3 months? Right? Am I looking to grow grass? What does the mineral concentrations of my field look like? That's the kind of stuff that I worry about. I don't sit there and go, oh my God, my bills. Oh my God, I can't pay my bills. Oh my God, I can't buy this. Oh my God, I can't buy that. I don't even think about stuff like that anymore. If I want to buy it, I can buy it. Effectively anything short of being an idiot. Can I buy a massive amount of drugs? I can effectively buy anything other than being an idiot. Sure, no drugs, no alcohol, no gambling, stuff like that. I can effectively buy anything on the planet. And I'm not lying about it. I am telling you the flat out truth. And I am telling you this is, you can look at it from any direction that you want. You can cut the pie whichever way you want. It is still a whole pie. All right, it's still the exact same thing. I legitimately make more money on my, I'm farming 50 acres right now, but I only have 8 animals on my leased property because of the weather, etc., etc. But, on these 50 acres, I am making more money running these cattle than anybody on the planet is doing anything, and it's a large amount of money, like multiple hundreds of times more money. I'm telling you the truth. I'm not lying about it. I legitimately start these businesses by myself. The revenue of my business has gone up by over 1,000% in the last 2.5 years. I will actually probably be doubling my revenue over the next 3 months. And in all honesty, when I consider the utilization of debt, the utilization of leverage, I will actually increase my income even more. I'm legitimately using zero debt. I'm only taking the money that I make by running my cattle and putting it into my business. And even when I do that, I am compounding growth of my business by about 25 to 35% a month. And take a look at it, because I sold cattle last week, right? I sold cattle last week. I showed you my check. I showed you, exactly, it is what it is. I'm not lying about it, and at the end of the day, God knows it, I know it. And, it just is what it is. I mean, and that's good enough for me. I'm not lying about it. God knows it, I know it, my mama knows it, my dad knows it, my brother knows it. I mean, and the cell barn knows it, and, it is what it is. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it doesn't matter. The numbers are the numbers, right? And then I took that money and I purchased myself a new set of calves. I purchased them very light. I paid $4.91 on the average for 170 pound cattle, right? And, that's what I did with the money. And as of today, if I just take the money that I make from in the business, if I just take that money and I reinvest it back into my business and I do not use any debt at all, I can still effectively grow the size of my herd by 25-30% compounding every month, buy all of the grain that I need, buy all of the fertilizer that I need, buy all of the medication that I need, and I still probably have thousands of dollars left over. And actually, here's a more realistic way to look at it. If I legitimately felt like I needed more money, which I don't ever think about that. I don't ever think about, oh my God, if I just had more money. I don't ever think about that. If I legitimately need more money, I will just farm more land. All right, legitimately, and as of today, within a realistic margin, I make so much money farming that I can effectively do anything on the planet short of being an idiot. Legitimately, I'm not lying about it. And what am I going to do with the money? Well, over the next 3 months, I will deleverage my entire balance sheet. I will legitimately pay off all of my debt. I will completely deleverage my balance sheet. I will still probably have 30 animals. I will still probably have enough money to buy 30 more animals. And then I will go to the bank and I will present my deal. Right? Give me a loan. How much money am I looking for? About $1 to $4 million. Realistically, $2 to $4 million. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for about a $2 to $4 million loan. All right, I will legitimately deleverage my entire balance sheet over the next 3 months. I will still have 30 animals. I will have enough money in my bank account to buy 30 more animals. The 30 animals that I have will have gone up in value. And at that point, I will also leverage myself for more cattle. Right, I will leverage against the number of animals that I have. All right, and I've been talking about this for a long time, right? If I legitimately felt like farming cattle on 10.5 acres for the rest of my life, I can always come back and do that. There's no reason for me to, to farm 10, and in a realistic sense, the money, I make so much money farming that, it just is what, I don't know how else to put it. I legitimately make so much money farming. I can do anything on the planet short of being an idiot. And I'm not lying about it. And guess what? My income is actually going upwards very quickly. All right, I don't know how else to put it other than to just tell you the truth. And it is what it is. And at the end of the day, the whole thing about this was that, I'm a first generation farmer and I had to teach myself how to do all of this, right? I mean, if you want to figure out what that was like, then you go and do it. Nobody cares about an opinion, okay? If you have a bunch of opinions, what are you going to do with your opinion? It's not going to do anything. Right, what are you going to do with your opinions, right? You're going to feel good about yourself, right? I mean, you know, have fun being a bum. I mean, you're legitimately just going to die poor. I mean, you know, what's that? I legitimately do this stuff in real life. All right, I do this stuff in real life, and I'm not lying about it. I'm not a malicious person about it. What would I lie about? Do my cattle look fake? Does my grass look fake? Do my checks look fake? All right, I mean, I legitimately, what would I lie about? I'm telling you the truth, right? I mean, I legitimately make so much money farming that I don't even worry about money anymore. You know, over the next 3 months, I will legitimately deleverage my entire balance sheet, and I will still have 30 cattle. I will still have enough money to buy 30 more cattle, maybe even more. And at that point, I will re-leverage myself. I am looking to also buy myself a new piece of land. What kind of land am I looking for? Somewhere between realistically $2 and $4 million. Let's just say $2 to $5 million. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to buy myself a big old piece of land. And at that point, I will also leverage myself for more cattle. Right? That's the big idea. You know, and at the end of the day, and I've been speaking about this in terms of a broader sense. I mean, you know, land is, you know, granted that I actually farm the land. Land is free. Within a reasonable margin, land is free. Because if I just show up and I start farming that land, I will make the money to pay for the land by farming the land. So, you know, and I talked about the $10,000 an acre. As long as it's, you know, $10,000 an acre or less, it's free. It doesn't matter if it's $2 million. It doesn't matter if it's $3 million. It's free. It is free. Granted that I just continue to farm. You know, the whole thing, you know, and just to put things in realistic perspective, on a 10.5 acre field, I bring home about $350,000 a year. Maybe a little bit, and I also got that lease property. So let's just say $350,000 a year. That's about how much money I bring home farming just 10.5 acres. By myself. I legitimately exceed the commercial standards on my own in my backyard. I actually do better than the commercial average. All right, this, borderline, and it is what it is, because, it's like, what am I lying? I wouldn't lie. What I mean, I'm not gonna say what am I lying? I'm not lying. Right, I'm telling you the truth, and it's almost kind of like a, I don't know how else to put it other than it's almost kind of like, I don't know if it's pathetic or if it's just kind of like a moronic. I don't know what it is, it's like if you're legitimately looking right at it and you still have no idea what's going on. How is that? Like, let's say that you're here and you're here to learn how to farm, right? And you're legitimately going to learn how to farm. You're legitimately looking to become a farmer. Or let's say that you even consider yourself to be a farmer. And I am showing you like the world's greatest farm that the world has ever seen. And you still have no idea what you're even looking at. How is that even possible? I legitimately make more money on my 10.5 acre field than most people make on 500. I make more money on my 10.5 acre field running cattle than anybody on the planet makes doing just about anything. Legitimately. And I run a commercial cattle farm as a first generation farmer. Legitimately, I'm not lying about it. I'm actually expanding my balance sheet by about 35% compounding every single month by just reinvesting the money that I make. I would anticipate that and I've always just said, imagine that things just go okay. If everything just goes okay, I will have 20 animals from this stabilized herd, and I got 8 animals on my lease property. So those 8 animals on the lease property and 12 animals from here will be going to the market. And that's what's going to happen if everything just goes okay. Right? And, and I will effectively just be able to rinse and repeat forever. Last week I sold 18 animals. I made enough money to buy 30 animals, 2 loads of grain, a load of fertilizer, pay my dividend, and I still probably have, $1,000 or $2,000 left over. I legitimately grew my business by like 35%. 25 to 35%, and I have enough money to buy 2 loads of grain and a load of fertilizer. And I did not use any debt at all. Legitimately with zero debt, if I just take the money that I'm making in the business and I put it back into the business, I still compound growth by 25%, 35% every single month. When you take a look at what I'm doing, I legitimately outperformed the entire commercial standard by myself in a backyard on my own. The commercial standard for like the massive beef market, I legitimately outperformed the commercial standard by myself. Legitimately, I grew my own grass. I ran my own business. I ran my own cattle. Legitimately, I'm not lying about it. You can go and look into it for yourself. Find out, what did the commercial, when you go and look at a commercial feed yard, find out how much weight they put on an animal. Find out how much weight, let's say that you actually find a commercial feed yard. Let's just say 500 pounders. Find a commercial feed yard that raises 500-pound animals and see how much weight they put on their animals every month. See how much weight that they put on. It's called the average daily gain, and you can watch presentations on the internet for free. There are hundreds of them. Legitimately, there are, animal nutritionists at these feed yards running tens of thousands of cattle, and they will present information for free. And see what their numbers look like, and then look at what my numbers look like. Legitimately, and see what they're paying for their feed, and see what I'm paying for my feed. I grow my own feed. All right, I grow my own feed. I grow my grass. And when you take a look at the grass, go and find somebody who is like a soil scientist. Go and find somebody who's like a plant special, a PhD plant biologist, and see what their plants look like, and then see what mine look like. Just take a look. All right, and then then you will understand. I actually outperformed. And if you want to take a look at business, go and see what the business owner looks like. Go and find yourself a business owner and go and see what their business looks like. Go and see how much money they're making. Go and see if they're even doing anything. Have they even increased their, have they done better at all over the last, and then take a look at my business, and then take a look at what that looks like. And this is also what I mean by, I'm not saying, I'm just saying it is what it is, okay? It is what it is. When it comes to growing grass, I effectively did better than anybody on the planet. When it comes to running cattle, I effectively did better than anybody on the planet. When it comes to running a business, I effectively did better than anybody on the entire planet. And when you put all of those three things together, I mean, we are talking about like a 0.00001% success rate. I legitimately do not know anybody that's even doing 10%. Most people cannot make even $35,000 to $50,000 a year on 10.5 acres. Most people can't even do $35,000. And I'm over here doing $350,000. All right, and I'm not lying about it. If take a look at it from whichever way you want. So far this year, I've ran 80 cattle, right? I've ran about 75, 80 cattle. I've sold 35 of them. I have 27 of them right now. They are stabilized and have gone up in value. I have 15 animals that are high risk, and they're in the front yard, and I'm stabilizing them as we speak. And I also have $17,000 in my bank account. All right, that's what I did with the money, okay? That's what I did with the money. And that's also, what I mean by, I've made about $100,000 for the year so far. About 120 grand. And here's the thing, the amount of money that I am making, this is what I'm calling the point of inflection. The amount of money that I am making is going up so drastically as of today that it is such a massive amount of money that I cannot spend it. Realistically, in terms of a realistic sense, I cannot spend the money unless I become an idiot, which I work on every day. Don't be an idiot, right? Do I want, but I don't, I'm not gonna, I'm whatever, right? But I'm not gonna, and I've been talking about this, whatever. I'm not gonna go and start drinking heavily. I'm not gonna go and start doing drugs. I'm not gonna go and start gambling. And I've always said that, one of the, and I was talking about this yesterday, but it's actually a very good feeling to not ever have to worry about money. And, and that's a very good feeling. I legitimately do not worry about money at all. It doesn't matter. Zero part of my soul is worried about money, legitimately. I have zero money concerns. I am not worried about money at all. Even if I lost everything that I have, I could redo it all in 3 seconds. Legitimately, I am not worried about money at all. Zero money concerns. You know, and that's kind of nice, right? I mean, that's kind of good. I mean, I'm okay with it, right? I mean, I worked for it. It's my money. I can do whatever I want with it. It's my money. I worked for it. I made it. If you want to know what it's like to have to go and, become one of the best grass growers on the planet, if you want to know what it's like to go and become one of the best cattlemen on the planet, if you want to know what it's like to go and become one of the best businessmen on the planet, and then you want to know what it's like to go and do all three at the same time, then you go and do it. Nobody's stopping you. All right, nobody's stopping you. And then if you make it, I will shake your hand. But to this day, I have not seen anybody at all ever even do 10%. All right, it doesn't matter where. I could legitimately be looking at a commercial feed yard. I probably make more, I probably do better than they do. All right, the owner of that commercial feed yard is probably making less money than me. All right, their results are not as good as mine. All right, at the end of the day, I keep more money than they do. Probably do, okay? Because if you got this feed yard and they're constantly utilizing, a commodity feedstuffs, and they're raising their animals to 1,500 pounds, and they got all of this machinery, all of that stuff costs money. I legitimately grow my own grass. I have one tractor, and I just flat out run cattle all the time by myself, 0 employees. Legitimately, I grow the grass by myself, I run the cattle by myself, and I run the business by myself. I'm not lying about it. And I have one tractor. All right, that's in terms of like a new equipment, I have one big tractor, that's it. And I'm not lying about it. I legitimately make more money farming this 10.5 acres than anybody on the planet makes doing anything just about. And the thing is that as of today, the amount of money that I am making is becoming so drastic that I cannot spend it under any, practically, granted that I do not become an idiot, I cannot spend the money. It's actually such a large amount of money that I cannot spend it. So what am I looking to do? I'm going to take my money and I will legitimately just deleverage my entire balance sheet over the next 3 months. I will legitimately just start paying off as much debt, practically all of it. Short of the mortgage on my land, because the mortgage on my land, I have a 3.75% interest rate. Why would I pay that off? It's a 3 point, I'm probably never going to see interest rates that low ever again. I'm not going to pay that off. The interest rate, okay. And just to put things in perspective, the interest rate that I have on my land is 3.75%. If I were to pay off my land, I could get rid of my mortgage payment, right? But if I took the same amount of money and I put it in a high yield savings account for 4%, I would actually make more money by just having my money in a high yield savings account than I would by paying off my land. That's how low my interest rate is. You can legitimately go to a bank right now and get a 4% interest rate by having money in that bank. My interest rate for this land is 3.75%. So if and in terms of reality sense, if I were going to pay off my land, I would actually lose money than if I just had the same amount of money in a 4% interest rate, a high yield savings account. So if I were going to pay off my land, it would not make sense to do it. If I was thinking about doing that, I would rather just take my money and put it in a high yield savings account. My interest rate on this land is so low that it does not matter. All right, interest rates are effectively double what they were when I bought this land. Effectively double. So there was no reason for me to pay off my mortgage, okay? It doesn't make sense. If I was going to pay off my mortgage, I would rather just take that same amount of money and put it in a high yield savings account. And I would actually make more money. All right, so, I'm not going to pay off the land. Other than that, I will pay off all of my other debt, effectively all of it. Granted, not my tractor. All right, not my tractor. I owe some money on my tractor, but I also got a 0% interest rate on it, and I'm like, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's 0% interest rate, and it's whatever. And I'm glad I have my tractor because I can do everything with that tractor. So I'm not worried about whatever, some minuscule amount of money. But I'm going to pay off all of my other debt. all of it. I will deleverage all of my cattle out, and I'm just gonna pay off my truck too. I only have like $1,200 left on my truck. I'm just gonna pay that off, and then I'm gonna deleverage all of my cattle. I will still have 30 cattle. I will still have enough money to buy 30 more cattle, and during the hot months I will stabilize those 30 animals, and when the weather turns better, I will start I'm gonna the whole idea is during that time period when the weather is bad, when the weather is very hot, I will go out and re-leverage myself. I will buy myself a new piece of land. And when I'm looking for a new piece of land, realistically, I'm talking about something between $2 to $5 million. All right, I'm looking for something between $2 to $5 million. And then at that point, I will reinvest my capital. I will also take a loan for the number of animals that I have. I will take a loan for more cattle. I will leverage against my balance sheet. And by the time I do that, the 30 cattle that I have stabilized will probably be ready for market. And when they're ready for market, I will actually make a profit on them. That's the whole idea, right? I have 30 animals stabilized. I buy a new piece of land. I invest the money that I have left over in my bank account, and then I take a loan for more cattle, and then I reinvest that money. I invest that new that new capital, that loan I have. I will reinvest that money, and then by that time I do that, I will have the 30 animals that I have stabilized. Those 30 animals will be ready to go for market. All right, that's the big idea. That's effectively what I am looking to do over the next 3 months. But, as of today, the amount of money, and I'm not lying about it, I'm legitimately telling you the truth. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. Why would I care? If you legitimately are looking right at it and you have no idea what's going on, I don't, and even when I'm telling you exactly what's going on and I'm showing you proof of everything, I'm legitimately showing you receipts. My cattle are not fake. I show you my sale barn receipts. I show you everything. Legitimately, I show you everything, okay? And if you still are going the wrong way, then it's probably too late. All right, I don't know what else to tell you. All right, I legitimately make more money on my 10.5 acre field than most people make on 500. I actually make more money on my 10.5 acre field than anybody on the planet makes doing anything, just about. And it's by a lot. And I'm not lying about it. I am telling you the truth. I am legitimately even showing you my receipts. I show you my checks. I show you what I was having a hard time finding on the piece of paper exactly what I paid for because I had a long list on my paper. But, but God as my witness, all right? Legitimately, I am not lying about it. I am telling you the truth. I paid $4.90 to $4.91, something like that, for the poundage. And the average weight of the animals were about 170 pounds, plus or minus 3% on those numbers. I am telling you the truth. I am not telling you the wrong thing. I am legitimately telling you the truth. I paid about $4.90 on the poundage, and I bought them at about 170 pounds. I sold my animals at 619 pounds, and I got $3.11.6 cents. Something like that. I got a $3.12 on the poundage when I sold my animals. I reinvested that money. When I'm reinvesting that money, I effectively have all of this right now. I paid for all of it, and I still have $17,000 in my bank account. Legitimately, I am telling you the truth. It's like $17,100, and those numbers are within like a plus or minus 3% accuracy. Let's just say 7% accuracy, just to give it a large margin. But honest to God, I am telling the truth. All right, and the whole thing about this is that I legitimately don't know anybody even doing 10%, okay? I don't even know anybody doing 10%, and that kind of bothers me. Like, how did this even happen? I'm not 10 times smarter than or whatever it may. I legitimately, I don't know how that. I would want to see more people become successful. I actually want to see more people become successful. I encourage people to become successful, right? All the time. That's the one thing you're going to get from me. One of the big things about me is that I legitimately encourage people to become successful. I give you the best information that I can and everything else. Right? That's the thing about me. I legitimately encourage people to become successful. I'm not some resentful moron hater, some delusional idiot. That's not me. I legitimately encourage people to become successful, right? I do it all the time. Go and start putting in the work. You don't have to worry about the money. If you were gonna, farm, you have to understand that I legitimately spent $700. And, on my farm in the last, but here's the thing. I talk about this all the time. All of the money that I need for farming comes from farming itself. I do not worry about money because farming makes me money. This costs me nothing. All of this costs me nothing. If I stopped farming, I would legitimately hemorrhage money. Everything that I need to be a farmer comes from the farm itself. All of the money that I need comes from me farming. When I farm, I legitimately make so much money that I actually make more money than anybody on the planet doing anything, and I farm 10.5 acres. Just about everybody. Farming does not cost me anything. And even if you have, and I've been saying this for a long time, but if you just go out and you learn to grow grass, it will take you a long time to even just do that. Learning how to grow grass might legitimately take you 5 to 10 years just to get decent at it. It might legitimately take you 10 years to get good at it. All right, and if you went and you learned how to grow grass, and you had let's just say you went and bought yourself a 20-acre field as well, right? And I talk about the whole thing about real estate. Let's say that you went and you bought yourself a 20-acre field. You were paying $1,000 a month for it, and you fertilized it. You could effectively grow enough grass on that 20-acre field to run 70 cattle at a time. You could legitimately run 200 cattle a year on that 20-acre field, and you could make yourself a lot of money. You don't have to worry about the money. The fertilizer is going to come from when you sell your cattle. The amount of money that you need to pay for your land is going to come when you sell your cattle. Legitimately, all of the money that you need. And here's the thing, and I show you my numbers. All right, I legitimately show you my numbers. All right, me, when I sell cattle, I legitimately make enough money to buy everything. And I can even expand the size of my business by like 35% compounding every month. Right, I'm telling you the truth, right? I even show you my receipts. Right, you don't have to worry, and this is one of the most difficult things I think for people to understand. And this is one of those things that, in terms of my perspective, I believe that a lot of people find it interesting, is that I legitimately do not worry about money at all. And I'm not saying that from like a delusional perspective. I'm not saying like I put myself in some unbelievably, horrible situation, and now I have massive money problems and I'm having a difficult time coping with that. So now I have determined that I'm not going to worry about money at all. I'm not saying that. All right, I'm saying that within a reasonable margin, and effectively I've put in the work. I actually know how to farm. Effectively, even if I had nothing, I could just start myself a new farm whenever I felt like it. All right, and when it comes to farming, I legitimately am so good at it that I make more money on my 10.5 acre field running commercial cattle than anybody on the planet makes just about doing anything. That's what I'm talking about when I say I don't really worry about money. I don't worry about money. There's no reason for me to. I would rather think about things like, what does my business look like? What direction is my business going? What does my grass look like? That's the kind of stuff that I think about. What is something that I can improve on, right? That's the kind of stuff that I think about. And I look to pass on this kind of this mindset of do not be in a situation where you have become where you think that it's not possible because you don't have the money. Chances are the money is negligible. The money is negligible. The more important thing is that you actually learn how to do it. All right, like if you want to become a farmer, you should not be worried about the money. The $700 that you need for your fertilizer will legitimately, you should not worry about that. If let's say that you only have $350, well, even if you only have $350, you can fertilize 10 acres, and with your $350 and 10 acres of land, you could legitimately run 30 cattle at a time 3 times a year, 35 cattle at a time 3 times a year. And when you do that, you will make and I'm telling you, when it comes to farming, I legitimately make such a large amount of money. It is such a massive amount of money that I effectively make multiple hundreds of times more money than the average person, than the median person, multiple hundreds of times. I legitimately make so much money. I don't even worry about money. All right, I am telling you the truth. Farming, when the whole thing about farming, and I give you my perspective that everything that I need in terms of running my farm comes from the farm. Legit, all of it. The money for the grain comes when I sell my cattle. The money to grow my herd comes when I sell the cattle. The money for everything, pay for the land, everything. And I still have about $15,000 to $20,000 a month left over, even after I've paid for everything. All right, you know, this is very important to understand. I mean, legitimately, I still have about, maybe I'm net positive about 15 to 20, maybe even up to $25,000 a month net positive. That's how much money I have left over after I've paid for everything. All of the money that I need for the farm comes from the farm. It's more important that you learn how to farm than you're worried about some trivial sum of money. All right, if you legitimately have convinced yourself that money is the reason you cannot do something, you are incorrect. Even if I had zero money, I could still start myself. You know, granted that I'm not talking about zero money, I'm talking about realistically zero money. If I legitimately only had $5,000 and that was all of the money that I had, I could turn that $5,000 into $100,000 by starting myself a farm within 2 years. Easily. It wouldn't even be difficult. All right, and this is something that, you know, it's very important to understand. Money is not, you know, it's borderline negligible. All right, what's more important is that, you got to learn how to actually farm. All right, because at the end of the day, and I talk about this, farming is one of those things where the skill set is so difficult. Farming itself is so difficult that, you know, you can, I don't know how else to put it. How many people do you know that it's like, farming is easy and that's why I made it? How many people do you know that do that? Nobody, not even me, right? Probably nobody. Farming, the work itself is so difficult. And I put this in terms of a realistic perspective. The thing about farming is that your opinions are not going to do anything. And a very realistic way to look at this is, imagine if you were put on a field with me. And the whole thing was that whoever does it gets the money. That's the whole thing. That's legitimately all it is. Whoever actually does the work gets the money. Then you will understand what I mean by opinions don't matter. Your opinions don't matter. If you cannot do the work, you will legitimately just end up being a bum. Legitimately, I'm telling you the truth. And learning how to do the work is almost impossible. It will legitimately take you a long time. In terms of the success rate, in terms of a realistic success rate, the chance of something happening like me is like 0.00000, maybe even 0.001%. I legitimately don't know anybody even doing 10%. Honest to God, I have not seen it to this day. And I make more money on my 10.5 acre field than most people make on the planet doing anything, and it's by a lot. Most people. I legitimately make, short of like Warren Buffett. I effectively make more money than anybody on the entire planet. By a lot. Effectively everybody. And I'm not lying about it. At the end of the day, if you're going to be an idiot, have fun dying poor, I will just be rich by myself. All right, I'm not some malicious person. I'm legitimately telling you that it's possible. I'm encouraging you to be successful. If you're not going to do the work, you're never going to make it. I don't know how else to put it. And that's it for me today, YouTube. Have a good one.